Now I don't hear anything.
Oh, boy.
Because they're doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Lori, I don't hear anything.
How do you? Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, all we did was say the pledge.
You want to start all over?
It was just a pledge. We're good.
All right.
Begin by taking attendance. I'm here. Bob Clark is here. Donald here.
Yeah.
I don't think we can hear you.
How about now? I don't know, it went back on mute. Is that better?
I could hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go out of order tonight and go to new business A. Commission discussion and decision regarding an 8-24 referral from the Board of Mayor and Burgesses for the acquisition by condemnation for the following property. 30 Church Street, unique ID 061-8500, and 0 Church Street, unique ID 061-8600.
Brian? You could come right to the podium over there.
So
Just not a microphone, just you talk loud enough.
Good evening. For the record, Brian McCann from the law firm of Coleman Conley. Excuse me. We represent the borough and associated with the 0 and 30 Church Street condemnation. And so they got me to here do this evening to present the 824 referral for your consideration. Are we all familiar with the 824 referral? Yeah. The statute requires that no municipal agency may, among other things, acquire land for municipal improvements without referring that sort of report to the planning. So this evening you are going to decide on a report specific for the taking of the property, whether you find favorably or you oppose. Now, the standard for deciding an 824 rule, basically you're deciding whether the municipal action here, the taking, comports with the POCD, the conservation development, and whether it's in the general interest of the community as a whole. You are not necessarily looking for sections within the POCD where you specifically planned for this action, but you're making sure that it comports with the plan, so that there are no things that you specifically planned for within the borough that would work counter to the proposal you're considering. Now to the activity. They are 2 parcels, 0 and 30 Church Street, Together, they comprise roughly 0.95 acres. And there is a commercial building on the site, I believe approximately 12,000 square feet of office space, single story. The purpose for the taking is really twofold. First off, the borough plans to do some street side improvements, some overall street improvements, and that's going to reduce the width of the lane of travel. It's also going to increase the curtilage, the walkways, plantings, and street side improvements. It's an overall beautification. I think it goes along with your overall strategy for complete streets initiative. So it'll be more pedestrian friendly, bicyclist friendly, and also for add to the beautification of downtown. The reason why I mention this is because with that roadway width decrease comes a very specific concern from the fire department, which is that the fire apparatus, the only way that this can comply with the fire code is if the fire apparatus are allowed to go behind the buildings and fight the fire from the rear side of the buildings, so that they're not in the single lane of traffic and obstructing traffic and causing other dangerous conditions in front. And if you're aware of the site, there currently are some obstructions that impede the fire apparatus going around the rear side of the building. First off, there is a chain link fence on one side. There are concrete block structures on another, and these obviously would impede that firefighting capability. So that's number one. Number two is a need for parking, for public parking in the downtown area. I believe that we have distributed the parking study that we commissioned. And that parking study was by Rose Tito and Company. And basically concluded that there is a shortfall of 134 public parking spaces. Now, keep in mind that this takes into account several improvements that are reasonably anticipated and that you've planned for in and around the area. So there is a total supply of 238 parking spaces. There's an anticipated demand of 372 and a shortfall of 134. And the area where that parking study concluded that the public shared parking spaces should be provided are in this immediate city. So we have a need for access to the rear of the building, because this is a streetscape improvement, and we have a need for additional public parking spaces. I don't believe in the immediate future there is a plan for removal of the building. There are a significant amount of parking spaces in the rear of the building that will be accessed immediately upon condemnation. And there obviously will be additional capability on site if not some of that building, additional parking if the demand increases in the future. We have performed, commissioned, two appraisals for the property. One, came in at $800,000, the other came in at $940,000. The statute requires us, to, deposit within the court, if we're not able, let me back up. The statute requires us to, form good faith negotiations for the purchase of the property, negotiation to purchase the property. If we can't accomplish that, the court requires us to, make a deposit, with the court. And that deposit would be in the sum of the average of the two appraisals. So in this case, and do you all have the maps that show what I'm describing? So for example, I think perhaps one of the most significant exhibits would be those streetscape improvements showing in this pink area would be the sidewalk and the street side improvements. Obviously, you can see plantings along the streetscape, crosswalks, crosswalk bump outs, flexipave tree pit, tree, brick sidewalk, driveway pavement. Hope you've had a chance to review that. I just quickly went through, since I did describe to you briefly standard, I thought it was appropriate if I just skimmed through your POCD, and I quickly took notes on a few things. Obviously, this would be for you to consider, but I noticed a few goals in that GOCD. For example, on page 6, one goal is that the borough will be easy to access and navigate by car, bicycle, transit, and on foot. A variety of opportunities of travel along key connections. Train station will be actively used and draw visitors as well as commuters from and around the area north. Page 31, future land use types, specifically for downtown. Downtown should be characterized by numerous civic users and public gathering spaces, from the town hall and libraries, trains, theaters, historic buildings. Downtown will include places to live, work, shop, eat, find entertainment, cultural enrichment. It should be defined visually and aesthetically, and should include a pedestrian network and access to many uses. Travel. Page 32. One goal is to develop associated regulations for parking to allow for complementary parking supply, such as with shared parking and off-site parking in the borough core. Page 33 is develop a streetscape improvement plan for the downtown and pursue enhancement funding. Page 47, consider establishing a series of strategically located downtown public parking lots that can be used by developers to meet their targets. So I'm sure you're much more familiar with your POCD than I am, but it would seem to me that there is a plan for not only improving the downtown area, not only improving the downtown streetscape, which we now have a plan for, but in addition to that, I think that there is a recognition of the need for parking supply. So I would offer that I think that the plan as presented to you for the municipal acquisition of 0 and 30 Church Street does comply with your POCD. I think you plan for this, and now we're requesting a favorable referral so that the borough can. Anybody have any questions?
I have one. When the Church Street, after Church Street has been narrowed, and you're not counting on this area for access to the fire department. I can't tell from the traffic, you know. It is saying that you're going to use the fire department. How is the fire lane going to be protected so that to get there? There's no plan that shows that.
Yeah,
So the question, how are we?
I would offer, I don't think that we're quite there yet. I think, okay.
We're gonna do what we used to do, come in from Rubber Avenue.
Yeah.
Straight through in the back and all the way to, our place.
Yeah, but what's going to keep that path open when 30 Church Street parking?
The borough will maintain it and,
It'll be marked with fire lanes and.
correct, whatever the fire marshal requires is what it will be.
It just,
And I think that's what I meant with, in terms of not there yet. I would anticipate that there would be some restriping, there would be some plan for the parking lot.
anyone from Zoom have any questions?
Nope.
Eileen?
I think she,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, I'm David Harden. I represent Hargate's. Appreciate the opportunity to address and to identify our concerns. Taking on the lawyer requirement for saying that contingency basis, Nathan Owens, along with Dwight Merriam, who regrettably here tonight, who both represent Ms. Silvio in connection with that position by the borough. As you can imagine, this is a very important matter to our client. Chief among the documents that is in the packet that was provided with Rose Tissot study, and we have been in discussions with Attorney McCann and Attorney Pollack for the borough about the proposed take, and Attorney Pollack has confirmed to Attorney Merriam that the Rose Tissot study is the basis for the public use conclusion about the proposed acquisition. That's primarily what I want to focus my remarks on this evening. So when we received the Rose Tissot report, we took a look at it, felt concerns about its conclusions. So we retained Georgia Jeff Martin, who is an expert planner at the firm FJ. We asked him to review the Rose Tissot report and to provide us with his conclusions about that. So Jeff Martin is giving virtually this compared to about the Rose Tissot report. And what I would like to do for the record is to enter Mr. Jeff Mart's CV and a copy of his that you can review. But at the risk of stealing his thunder, I'll just offer a quick summary, which is that his findings are that the Rose Tissot parking is really fatally flawed. It's not correctly determined number of parking spaces. It says nothing about where those spaces are located in the area, and in particular, that report offers no guidance as to whether 0 Church Street, 30 Church Street must be required for parking over all other available sites. And in our view, in short, the borough has not demonstrated use purpose for the acquisition of our county property. So for this reason, and others that I will identify with Mr. Chuck Martin in parts, we're doing an asset, it should offer a negative view, assuming it's 24. And if I may, I would like Mr. Jacques Marc to review his findings. As he's doing that, I'll hand up to the commission copies of the CV report. And if I may, would just like to make some brief concluding remarks after Mr. Jacques Marc has finished this.
Can I speak?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for letting me talk about this. My name is George Jacques Marc. I'm a professional transportation planner doing transportation and parking studies. I'm a principal at BFJ Planning with an office in New York City and Stamford, Connecticut. I reviewed the traffic study that was submitted, what I call the Rose-Tissot study that was submitted to the borough. And just as an introduction, what they indicate as a purpose of the study is to assess parking space usage, estimate parking needs associated with developments in the area, and recommend the number of parking spaces required. So they basically looked at each site in the borough and analyzed whether each site provides its own parking or not, and then they calculated for each site that does not have any parking what the parking demand would be. So that's in a nutshell how they approached it. My review basically looks at their methodology and then the parking ratios that they used in the study. The Rose-Tissot study does not include any parking occupancy counts, even though it does mention as a goal of the study that it would analyze the usage. There are no parking occupancy counts included in the study. For me, that's a major shortcoming because there's no better way, there's no more accurate way to determine what the parking demand is today in the downtown by just doing a count. So typically when we do a study like this, we pick a typical weekday, a relatively high weekday, and a Saturday, and we count the parked cars, on an hourly basis, let's say starting at 10 a.m., 11, and so on till 5 or 6 p.m. to figure out what is the parking demand today and when does that parking demand peak. Typically, in an area like downtown Naugatuck, it probably peaks around lunchtime. So that's a first step that this study does not make. The study just looks at the sites, looks at the uses of each site, estimates the square footage, and then uses parking ratios to determine what the demand would be. And it uses parking ratios that are established by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. You may have heard about it, ITE, Institute of Transportation Engineers. They provide very extensive data on traffic generation and on parking demand. But it is important to understand.
Ned,
Sorry.
there you go.
Okay. It's important to understand that the ITE parking ratios are based on empirical studies. That means they're based on surveys that are done on individual sites where you have traffic engineers that go out and count the number of cars that are associated with that particular use, whether it's retail use and office use or whatever, or shopping center and so on. So the ITE parking ratios are strictly suburban parking ratios. And that's important to understand because when you apply these ratios to an area like downtown Naugatuck, you have to adjust the ratios for the particular behavior that happens in a downtown like Naugatuck. For instance, if you were to look at a restaurant on Church Street today, you could not determine the parking ratio because cars are parked a little bit all over. And there are significant differences between what we call suburban locations and a location in downtown, especially for uses like restaurants and retail, where a number of people that go to those restaurant or retail destinations are people that are already parked in downtown. and the ITE ratios don't take that into consideration. We have worked with a number of municipalities where we developed parking ratios that are specific to the downtown area, that take into consideration that a restaurant in a downtown or retail space in a downtown is not like a shopping center that's in a suburban area where everybody drives to and from. In a downtown area, you have what's called these link trips, and the parking ratio of a restaurant is significantly lower than the parking ratio in an outlying area where everybody drives to and from that particular use. So that's the first criticism of the parking study. You cannot apply these ITE ratios to downtown, to like your downtown borough. I've done a lot of parking work in the borough of Princeton, New Jersey. It's probably a smaller downtown compared to Naugatuck, and they have developed a special parking ratio for their downtown that takes into consideration the shared parking that, the study that's developed by Rose Tissot talks a lot about shared parking, and takes into consideration also the fact that, for instance, at lunchtime, a restaurant in downtown does not generate the same parking demand that you have in a suburban area. So that's an important consideration. The other part that the Rose Tissot study does not take into consideration is the fact that you're close to a train station today. And in the future, it's even going to be closer, once the train station moves close, further south. The Institute of Transportation Engineers provides specific parking data and specific traffic data for retail uses and residential uses, I should say, that are within a TOD area, transit-oriented development. The study area used by Rose Tissot is today between 1/4 and 1/2 mile from the existing train station. That qualifies as a TOD, and they should have used TOD ratios because ITE does provide TOD ratios. The most consequential mistake by this parking study is the fact that they do not take into consideration the shared parking characteristics. For instance, when you look at the spreadsheet, and they developed a fairly large spreadsheet, I can give you some kind of indication here, and you look at the very last column where they list, it's called the need for shared parking for a weekday. And they add up all of these uses, the parking need for each property. I guess you all have that, the big spreadsheet, and it's the second to the last columns. So they add, the parking ratio, parking demand for retail, for residential, for office, restaurant, but they add the parking demand for the peak parking ratio, not for the parking demand that occurs at lunchtime when your parking actually peaks. So if you look at the few residential uses that they add in here, they assume the peak parking demand of a residence during the nighttime when it peaks. And they add it here to the shared parking demand. That's contrary to the whole shared parking analysis. When we do a shared parking analysis, we looked at when the peak parking occurs, and in this case, I think it is lunchtime, even though we don't have any data for that. And we should not add the parking demand of a residential unit that occurs during the night. We have to add the parking demand that occurs at lunchtime. So that's a substantial mistake in that study, that, the way they add those numbers on that right-hand column. So as a conclusion, we feel that this study has significant flaws. It will not stand up in a court of law. It is not an acceptable study that, concludes that you really need this number of parking spaces. In addition, in response to the comment by the borough attorney, the parking study does not specify where the parking spaces should be added. It says very specifically at the end, it says the parking spaces should be located within the parking analysis area. And that's an area that goes from the railroad tracks all the way to Meadows Street, and from Rubber Avenue all the way to the top on Division Street. And it says the parking spaces that are needed should be located within that area or immediately adjacent to the area. So we feel that the study is not correct. It's flawed. In addition, it doesn't look at other opportunities. You have a tremendous parking supply opportunity from the new development that's proposed adjacent to the train station. Your parcels A and B, if you look at the plans for it, there's a sea of parking, and that parking can be used in a shared parking mode. It would be very, very easy for the developer of those two parcels, the developers, to basically operate those parking lots as shared parking facilities. Because during the day, at least, I would say 40% at least of those spaces will be vacant. The people that live there, not all of them will use the train. And we have statistics for TOD areas that we have done studies in TOD areas where you know exactly how many cars are leaving during the day. So I don't remember how many parking spaces there are in those two parcels. If you estimate 40%, that's a huge amount of people that could park there during the day. Business people, even in the evening hours, not everyone comes home at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. We know very well from parking occupancy studies that have been done that that is very easy to accommodate the parking demand that you see in a typical downtown area, you know, parking demand generated by businesses and offices and retail. So there's a tremendous opportunity to do that. And again, I would ask you to look at other municipalities. Again, the borough of Princeton has done that in the mid-80s. They redeveloped their downtown. They built parking decks for 1,000 spaces. The private developer built those two separate parking structures. And from day one, they operated as shared parking. And then the employees that work there got a parking permit, the residents got a parking permit, and they all park in the same area. And it's the most efficient, you know, arrangement you could see in terms of, you know, the efficiency of land use and you know, the way that these new buildings, these new developments are built. So that's I think, a great opportunity to generate additional parking without buying an active use that you have in your downtown. Anyway, that is my presentation. I'll be happy to answer questions if you have any.
Any questions in the room? I have one. Looking at the presentation, I have a vague understanding of methodology. The question is, did you go beyond saying Rose Tissot is a flawed study to anything that modifies their results? Did you come up with a different number? Did you come up with anything specific rather than just their study was flawed?
No, I have not done those calculations. I think, you know, between those different factors, you know, the using the suburban ratios versus using ratios that would be appropriate for downtown. And that's one change. The second change is to use the TOD ratios for the residential uses. So that decreases that demand. And then the final adjustment is to adjust this column, where you adjust the ratios, where the Rose Tissot study uses the peak parking demand, whether that peak parking demand occurs during the night or on a Saturday for retail or at lunchtime. They just add all those peak parking demands, and they call it a shared parking analysis, which is contrary. But I suspect it will be a substantial difference because we're talking about that increment. You know, a lot of the sites that they analyze have some parking on the site, but don't have enough parking to in comparison to the ratio that they developed. So they are talking about that supplement of parking that's not, provided on their site, that would then be, addressed in that shared lot. And it's that supplement that would be, in some cases, would be eliminated by these new, if you were to do a new calculation. And it is not a question of just 10 or 15% difference. This difference here is substantially larger, and I could see it easily being decreased by at least 50%, if not more. It is definitely, I've worked in this field almost 50 years. I remember my very first parking study was almost 50 years ago for the city of Napa in California. So I've done a lot of these studies. I've done a lot of studies in downtown areas, like Princeton, for instance. I was involved in that study in the mid 80s. And that's a great example of shared parking. And it's very upscale development. These are not, low scale developments. It's very upscale, where you have the residents parking in the same spaces as the, daytime employees that work there. So there's a big difference.
Any questions in the room?
Excuse me for asking this, but the commission had concerns about the proposed development on parcel B, which you may not be familiar with that, adjacent to the train station, in that they were not providing a parking space per bedroom. We were assured by that developer that they've done similar developments. And in fact, we're invited to go see where the parking they provided was adequate. In your experience, 50 years or so, have you found that transit-oriented spaces are not necessary in a one-to-one per bedroom or per occupant?
Well, that's a good question. We have done surveys like that, where we went out and counted cars actually during the night, because that's when residential uses peak. And most of the surveys that we have done recently were in Westchester County, where we counted cars, that were within half a mile from, generally it was a Metro North station, the Hudson Line, Harlem Line. We also did surveys in downtown Stamford. And in those cases, we very often determine parking ratios close to 1 space per unit, and that's an average for all the units, whether it's a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom. In most cases, these developments in the train stations, they tend to have either studios, 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom, occasionally 3-bedroom, but very rarely. And so there we found ratios that are close to 1, so in some cases even less than 1. But those were also, in terms of train service, a more intense train service than what you have in Naugatuck today. So that plays a role as well. But it is always, close to 1 and not 2 spaces per unit. In a case like this, and I haven't looked at the, bedroom breakdown and so on, but in a case like your parcels A and B, there will be some people that will have 2 cars, there's no doubt. But there will also be people that have 0 cars. There may be elderly people, there may be disabled people that don't have a car, because all these developments have to be completely ADA accessible. You sometimes have younger people that don't want to have a car. So, being close to 1 is reasonable. I can't say that in this case it's going to be 1 or 1.5, I don't know, but it's probably not 2 spaces per apartment. It's probably going to be significantly less than 2 per apartment. So that's our experience based on data that we collected, you know, in other TODs. They're not all comparable to your TOD, but I hope that answers the question. But you know, my point that I made is not so much about the parking ratio. It's whatever parking you have in those lots, and you know, they're very large parking lots. When I looked at the plans, you know, the point is that 40% of those spaces will be vacant during the day. You know, starting, and we know some people leave at 6 o'clock and some leave at 7 o'clock and so on. So it's an ideal situation to have shared parking and to satisfy that parking demand that's being talked about, you know, whether it's 130 spaces or 30, can easily be satisfied in those two lots.
More questions here? Any more questions from Zoom?
Nope.
One?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chopper. As you're all aware, the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution requires public use of purpose for requires any property for the course of process. And to your question, Mr. Chair, we have not prepared a study, but the compelling point is that burden in terms of demonstrating that public use and needs upon the municipality. We all recall the public outcry over Kilo case. Issue use of the centered around whether the municipality had proper and demonstrated public purpose. So we all know, following that case, many states, including their own, changed their laws to limit access. So that's where we come on this issue. Working study that you have is really pieces. This is John Marquez. Purpose here, critically, is nothing Church Street, part 2. Part beyond that substantive issue, we're also concerned that the commission is not providing its package to appraisals that are town for this Cillian's property. Attorney McCann made reference to those figures and the value that came out of the reports, but the actual reports themselves have not been part of the commission's package. Council had previously indicated that those appraisals would be part of the work. I do think those are important for a fully informed consideration of the issue. For all these reasons, a request of this commission is that it send a negative referral back to this proposed statement, back to the mayor. This, at its core, this issue is about planning. This is what your commission does, and the borough really needs a proper parking study before it should go forward with taking its client's bill at this stage. So we'll be asking the mayor and the board of purchases to commission such a study. We urge you to request the same of the mayor and purchases as we continue to discuss with village council concerning alternate resolutions.
Thank you. Again, Brian, again, Pullman Company record. I just quickly had a opportunity to take a look at the property owners professional planner report. First thing that I noticed from the report was already addressed by Commissioner piece, which is, I'm a little bit skeptical because the report doesn't include anything. I think I would be a little more convinced if the professional planner had done his own traffic parking calculation to directly rebut that of the boroughs, but it hasn't. Secondly, the report specifically states that there are other means of accomplishing a shared parking or creation of additional parking. I'm not sure that the legal standard is that this must be the only way to accomplish our creation of additional parking. But I think we've proven today that it is necessary. Additionally, to that end, I think this process has started long before the commencement of the 0 and 30 Church Street taking. Again, I've shared with you several excerpts from your POCD. It appears to me that there is, well, and even taking a step back, you've approved several significant developments in the downtown area. That's one thing I think to consider. How is that going to impact an already strained parking count? Secondly, the excerpts that I read from you in the POCD, the trains, such as the train station will be actively used and will draw visitors as well as commuters from around the region of Naugatuck. There's an expansion of the train station that's going to increase the parking above and beyond what we're already contemplating. Future land use types in downtown, pedestrian network, and access to many modes of travel. Long-term goal, consider establishing a series of strategically located downtown parking lots that can be used by developers to meet their parking demand. I think these are things that you've planned for long before we got together tonight, long before we even considered the taking at 0 and 30 Church Street. These are things, these are studies that were considered before that you've adopted, by the way, your last POCD, which is what, 10 years old now?
Yes.
Almost 10
Correct.
years old now. So these are vehicles, no pun, that you've put into motion that you know were from 10 years ago. As far as the appraisals go, I have both appraisals with me tonight. I would ask you if there's any desire to take a look at those. I can pass that. I can distribute them. We can take a recess even if necessary. I don't want you to decide if you don't think that you have all the necessary information. But I've shared the results of those appraisals with you. I suspect that may be.
I agree on this. So I'm Ned Fitzpatrick. I'm the borough. I'm the attorney for the commission. The amount of money involved in the transaction is not relevant to, in my opinion, 3-24. We've been through this 65 times at least. It's not relevant. It's not a consideration. The considerations here are whether the purpose of the taking meets semblances of the plan of development, and it is regarding the parking studies. It is my view. It's a matter of you evaluate the weight of the evidence, the opinions that have been provided between the two studies. That's your determination. You decide that. So it's not a question of that one's disqualified, you determine it. And from this, and the legislative body determines the needs, whether it's the property, which is the subject of the taking, is a question for the legislative body, their determination. So it's not where they may have inferred that it should be something different from your determination. It's not your determination. Okay, that's my thought.
completely agree with that. But let me just offer as well that while I understand the standard very well, your commission standard for tonight's decision, at the same time, I am also offering, sort of an open book presentation to look at this. Because I don't think the borough has anything to hide, and I think this is something that has been planned for quite some time. So to the extent that we're getting into, a valid public purpose argument, we can entertain it. I don't know that that's the standard that we're supposed to be deciding tonight, but at the same time, there is a valid public purpose here, so it's not something that we're going to shy away from. And lastly, I still also haven't heard anything about the fire department access to the site. That in and of itself is a valid public purpose, very important health and safety public purpose. I haven't heard that addressed. And I'll note for the record, because I just quickly did check my emails on Monday, August 28th. There was an exchange, one at 4:27 p.m., one at 4:38 p.m. emails between my office, Elliot Pollock, an attorney for the property owner, wherein attorney Miriam inquired what type of access does the fire department need, and again the later email at 4:38 p.m. response from Elliot Pollock from my office was for fire truck. So there's no question that the property owner is aware of the dual public purpose. That's been communicated. We've heard one criticism, but I don't think that it necessarily holds any water for the reason I stated, that there isn't direct contradictory evidence. And I don't think that, on top of that, I don't think that the legal standard is that this is the only means to accomplish the goal of the borough. It is a means, it is a valid means, and there are many considerations. There are many considerations that have come into play. The location is one of them. I think, compensation is probably another. There are many. You're the planning body. I'm probably preaching to the choir here. This is something that you're very, very aware of, the needs of the community. Again, you planned for this 10 years ago. And the issue has only gotten worse with the two projects that were recently approved. Will be worse when the two projects come to fruition. So I'm going to turn it over to the mayor. He'd just like to make a closing remark. Thank you all for your time.
Yeah, as council indicated, we're all familiar with downtown Ardmore. You have your own personal knowledge. I would submit if you walked out the door right now, right across the street, right at that property, there is a private parking lot owned by IAM Bank that is completely full and overflowing with illegal cars. We get parking complaints in the mayor's office often based on existing conditions, number one. Number two, the whole downtown plan is based on increasing vibrancy, making downtown, nicer, but making it more vibrant so people will come here, attract more people, attract new business, have more restaurants coming. And that happens when people are walking around. And people aren't walking around if they're not living downtown as much. Yeah, we have more people walking around now than we did 5 or 6 years ago, but to have a really vibrant downtown, you need people living downtown. So the whole downtown plan is based on making it more vibrant, having more activity. In my mind, we don't have enough parking now, and it's going to get worse, and it's very clear to me. And I would also note that, I think I heard the planner say that there could be a 50% error in the report. Well, 50% error means we still need plenty of parking right now, and even that is before all the new development comes. So in my mind, we need more parking, and we're going to need more beyond this. So to me, we have a clear need, and the fire safety need is also critical. We can't we can't finish the road project without complying with the order that's before you. What you have before you is an order from the state fire marshal telling us that unless we meet the terms of the modification and have access to the rear, we can't even improve Church Street. That is an absolute 100% rock solid argument to go ahead with it, even totally apart from parking. So I believe we have a public need and the borough wants to pursue it and move forward now.
I think on the point of fire safety, I think if that's all we were talking about, and that was the only issue, and public need that, was at issue, I don't think I'd be here. That's a different conversation. As Councilman has indicated, we have the dialogue on a particular issue. That's a very different issue than the complete taking of private property in fee. The purpose of that taking goes well beyond fire safety. It's right into the heart of parking demand issues. Those reasons. Issue of negative finding on this.
Councilor, if I may. Clearly, there is some debate between the two parties relating to study. When was your client notified of the possible taking?
Well, I think I refer to the public record.
One, the client given adequate time to prepare an alternative study.
Well, we don't believe that's our burden to prepare the alternatives. In terms of the amount of time, that's something we didn't test.
But clearly, you provided a presentation, raised questions about the study that you had access to. As an engineer, I can understand questions. Third, to hear more data, rather than simply, well, it could be off. It might be. As a scientist, there's a distinct possibility every single molecule of oxygen in this room will become in that quarter and all that stuff. That's calculated. So when somebody says it could be, doesn't very much weight.
Yeah, well, I think when we're talking about the dramatic sort of issues are important. Or address this sort of issues.
Can I ask if Sir Jacques Mark actually came to the area that
He can speak to that himself.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Did you actually come to Naugatuck to view the areas and understand the report that was given to us?
Sorry, did I? There's a bit of an echo, sorry.
Did you actually come to Naugatuck to view the area that the report?
No, I did. I was asked to review the study, and to do my review, I spent a lot of time on Google Earth and Street View. So I have seen all the properties that are being talked about. I spent time on your the borough's website to understand the planning actions that you're considering, and so it's based on that, you know. And the client here asked us to do a limited review, you know, not spending too much money on this. And I think the conclusion was we did not have the resources to do a detailed calculation. But my conclusion is very clear. the study that you have is substantially flawed. Substantially flawed. And I said, you know, it could be even less than 50% of what in terms of parking demand. So it's a study that will not hold up in a court of law. I have enough experience in this field to basically state that, because the methodologies are just plain wrong.
Thank you. Who provided this? I provided. I'm not clear what it's about.
Yeah, it was the indication from council that the appraisal should happen with the commission. Which is not, the point being that that's not before you, the complete application, which should have included the appraisals. Which does.
Are there any other questions? Last chance, any questions from anyone? Zoom or in the room? Okay, gentlemen, thank you. Appreciate your presentations. Okay. Question to the commission. Are we sufficiently prepared to move forward with the recommendation? Is there something that someone would like to add? Okay. Hearing no objections. Let me tell you where I stand on this. I'm not a fan of taking property, never have been, probably never will be. I think the major obligation of this commission, first and foremost, is public safety. I believe that the borough has demonstrated more than enough requirements for public safety with the narrowing of Church Street, which is going to proceed in accordance with the POCD and downtown beautification rehabilitation project. I did go off this weekend and read CBS 46.8 and 46.12. There's no conflict there with this action because I wanted to see what it said. With reference. And based on that, I am in favor of this. In favor of the positive.
My sentiments are the same. I don't like. Having one on the street and already as wide as it is, it's not safe. I was trying to go into Iron Bank and the parking lot's been full and see people walk across the street. I too have parking out across the street and get pizza and stuff like that, so I understand there is a need for more parking. And
Anyone else want to make a comment for the record? Pretty much ditto what both of you guys have said. It's definitely a safety.
When I read the parking study that my initial lasting impression was but I'm not qualified to say that any of them. Nothing in that is in conflict with the plan conservation. That is from your old one or before you one. I would have preferred to see another further study. Study first from mentioning it itself that it was not the most rigorous.
Any other comments from the commission? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion, the plan commission send a positive referral to the Board of Mayor and Burgesses pursuant to section 8-24 of the Connecticut General Statutes for the acquisition by condemnation for the following property: 30 Church Street, MDLU AM 13, lot 22W26, unique ID 061-8500. And 0 Church Street, MDLU AM 13, lot 22W43, unique ID 061-8600. Is there a second? I'll second. Second? Is there any further discussion or comment? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Abstained.
Okay.
401.
The motion passes 401. Okay, going back to our regular order of business. Doing approval of our previous minutes, we'll begin with the September 11th regular meeting. If everyone has time to read the minutes from the September 11th meeting. And are there any comments, additions, corrections? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion. Great.
Regular. Commission meeting minutes. And the minutes.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You're, okay, and there was just one comment that if we could just speak a little louder. Okay, and Ray, did you vote?
Yes, aye.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on, our special meeting of September 25th. Did everyone have a chance to read those minutes? Hearing none, I'll accept the motions to accept the minutes as prepared.
Make a motion to approve the September 25th, 2023. Meeting minutes. as written.
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Okay. All business. Item A. Commission discussion and review of the plan of conservation and development.
Right, so before you, we have our draft POCD, not including in this is our maps. We have to insert those, which I have a bunch of new maps that Fred has been working very hard on. One question, and we'll figure this out later. Are we gonna insert the maps how they were prior, or do we wanna just put C, appendix, whatever, and put them all in the rear of the document? That's a question for later, but before the end of the night, because tomorrow I'm gonna have this printed up nice. So do you want to start with maps? Or do we want to start with the Conservation Commission and their questions?
Let's get the maps out.
Okay,
That's easy.
okay, share. Let me see how I'm gonna. Oh, I thought I had them all here. Okay, hold on. There they are. Okay. We'll start with
The conservation. Yeah, oh, absolutely. No, that's gonna be a lot.
Ray. Can you see the sewer service area?
Yes.
Okay. So this is one of the maps that was prepared by Fred. Make a sketch of that. I'm not sure if you remember what the old one looked like. Let's see if I can get
That
this.
one, what you handed out today?
I'm not sure if the sewer service area is
Purple.
purple?
That's the only thing.
Fred, are you available?
Yes, I'm here.
No, Fred, is the new sewer service map purple?
What you're sharing your screen as, everything that's green is currently sewered.
Okay,
The yellow, and actually the legend is down at the bottom. The pink is septic. And the yellow is sewer avoidance areas, which we developed with the state deep to accommodate that. Some of it was originally going to be a subdivision to be sewered, but those subdivisions have expired, so now they're sewer avoidance areas.
okay, you know what, Fred, I just have the wrong one on here for them. You had changed the colors a little on the current one that made it a little easier to read.
Well, I'm seeing the one that I think
Yeah.
you wanted, but
I have to stop that one. I stopped sharing. Let me share the next one. Hold on. There we go. Fred has been working very hard in updating these and trying to make them clearer to see. So this is the one where he took out all the hashtag areas and kind of made it just the purple. The only hashtag one was the landfill. Over on the other, there's a legend on the side. Yellow's the expansion, subsurface disposal areas, the green. Currently sewered is the purple. And so what he did was he named just some of these streets, for reference. Where I believe our old one did not have that.
I attempted to make it easier to interpret.
Yeah.
So the last one kind of didn't have much. It was just basically green. It's right here.
And this one also depicts where there's sewer mains, which are the thin green lines on the streets.
So yes,
Would it be difficult to add that to the key?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the whole question.
could you add the little green lines, the sewer mains to the key? I believe he has to still do that.
No, it's right on top. It's the first line.
So I didn't get that one.
No, you're displaying it now.
Oh, I got that. I wasn't able to print it out for you. So yes, it is on the,
Left side.
you have no idea how many maps Fred has been going back and forth.
Well, I've seen half of them, sure.
Thank you, Fred, that was quick work.
Hey, I try to be prepared.
Okay. So that's our sewer map. Okay, let me just put this all in order because there's so many. Sewer map. Okay, next one. We have we will go to the zoning map. So this map now, let me just get to current zoning. So Fred, we combined two of these, correct? We did the zoning on here And, we used to have one parcel-based land use. So it had residential, commercial, industrial. What Fred did was kind of put the zones in the colors, which the correct colors that we have. And he also added the parcels to this with the aquifer protection areas called out on here. Fred, is there anything else you want to add about this one?
Well, I would say that for some reason, the parcels are not depicting correctly on what I see, so I will tweak it so it is more, so you can see the parcels.
Okay, I think when I scroll in, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
That's an easy fix. It's just,
Okay, so you know
It's-
what you have to
it's
fix
there,
up.
but just in the interest of getting this done, there may be some tweaks.
All right. That was our zoning. Next. So that incorporated a couple of maps into that. Next, we have.
Mulberry Hill, Mulberry Street. Okay.
Okay,
That's 60 feet.
Prospect Street. Next map is this was in our open space. So what it is it's all of our trails, state forest, parks, pocket parks, Nichols Road parks. What happens is this map will now have the chart behind it. Before it was just a small chart that was on one of the individual pages in our PLCD. I have now created, and it will be this size. So what we tried to do is incorporate everything. Fred and I just have to go over this map one time or the chart with Emily to make sure. So you see the big chart that's behind. This used to be just the little piece in the conservation, open space conservation section. So when we tried to incorporate all of our fields, some of them are in red because those are the ones I have to question with Fred. And we have everything from athletic fields, baseball fields. We put in here the Naugatuck River Greenway, hiking trails, horseback riding. We have pickleball courts, passive recreation, the nature education center, splash pad that's coming, the new skate park. So we tried to incorporate everything. I put it alphabetical park across the top. And then the parks are listed down the side alphabetical.
We don't have no one of the maps. I don't have.
You don't have the green map? Oh,
I have the.
I probably gave it to you last month. I could, send it to you.
So Lori, there's a couple tweaks to be done on this. We're gonna show the land that's under contract for Wilmot, which is 45 acres. And we're also gonna show land that we are purchasing from Connecticut Water adjacent to Delgado Field, which is in the final stages of acquisition.
Okay. Do you want-
The Wilmot was purchased with an open space and wetlands acquisition grant by the state. And there will be a permanent conservation easement on that.
Yeah, that's what happened. Permanent conservation easement on that one. And also we're gonna add, you said the water company property.
Correct.
And what would that be called?
That's to be determined. Part of it's going to be a multi-use field and the rest is hiking trails and just passive open space.
Hiking trails, passive open space. passive recreation, hiking trails, and athletic fields.
There, we're permitted under the agreement to utilize, I can't think off the top of my head what the percentage is, but we're using that percentage to build a field adjacent to Delgado Field.
Okay. Now the Wilmont property, what will that 45, and how many acres? Do you know how much the water company property is? Acreage?
I don't have that handy, Lori.
Okay, and then the Wilmont property, what is that gonna be?
It's 45 acres, not plus, but maybe slightly minus, of a state grant that we were able to purchase it. That's under contract. We're working on doing a survey. We have hired a surveyor. We will be working with him to delineate what we're purchasing. And we're also awaiting surveys from Connecticut Water of the exact boundaries of what we're buying. We know how many acres, but the survey is in progress. They've done the field work and they're compiling the maps now.
Perfect. So what will the Wilmont property be used as? Is that passive or is that
That is
hiking?
passive. It's deed restricted,
Passive, deed restricted?
just like Andrew Mountain Road. We have an active section and a passive section.
Okay,
So the active section has the dog park, community garden, the beehives.
so I did
And
miss
those-
the beehives. I have to add, there is beehives here.
Yes, and also the disc golf is up there.
I have the disc golf. Okay, I'll add the beehives. So
And the
basically,
beehives are adjacent to the garden.
okay. So basically what we did with this is we just wanted to show everybody, we do have a lot of open space, a lot of parks. I mean, we are working hard on that. So is that map acceptable? Oh, and Fred, you were working on the cap. What was that called? Remember, I told you the Beacon Falls, Bob Clark mentioned.
Yeah.
What is it called?
Oh, yes, the Beacon Cap hike.
Yeah.
So that's through the state forest. Go ahead, Fred.
Right.
So Bob, as I looked into this, I knew there was a trail there. It appears that you access it from state forest trails. When we've hiked it, we bushwhacked it from Route 63 up the backside. It wasn't fun.
From, the commuter parking lot is, in Fountain Hollow. There is a access parallel to Route 8 going south. It's not in Naugatuck, but it ends up in Naugatuck. So you came up with 63.
You had mentioned that there's a Connecticut Walks book. Do you happen to have that?
Yes, I do.
I wasn't about to buy it.
I will bring it down to
That would be great if you could do that. And I really appreciate all your comments. Right now, my goal is to at least get stuff in front of you that we can tweak as the process goes on.
Okay. Next, we have. Oh. This is a new one from today. This is the, what we used to have for the water service. It would be our old map,
So this shows three things. The light blue is their service area for Connecticut Water Company. The blue outlined areas are the watershed boundaries, and the aquifer protection areas. As far as showing their facilities, we really are not supposed to do that. I have a call into Connecticut Water to make sure they're comfortable with what I'm showing on this map. But after 9/11, all the utilities have locked down what facilities you're allowed to map. And I have signed a non-disclosure agreement for that.
Understood. So the gray areas are not serviced.
Correct.
That's a lot of the open space R65 way up on the hills. So this was our old map and it had called out the wellheads and everything.
Right. Nothing.
So Fred made a nice blue map for water.
And it should be noted that the gray areas off to the right side, that appears to be almost all water company property.
Over here, all in the aquifer or the
Yes.
watershed.
Yep, and the bottom middle is clearly state forest.
Down here.
Yep. There's some
Okay.
people up there that have water service due to the old landfill. They installed the water tank to supply people with the water because the wells were gonna become contaminated.
They did. Who maintains those water tanks?
Who maintains the tanks?
Yes.
Who
Yes,
maintains
Fred.
the watershed or the tanks?
That's, that's,
The agreement when the water service was expanded, we supplied the land, we still own the land. Connecticut Water Company maintains it. They maintain the distribution of that.
thank you.
Any other questions on that one? Okay, hold on, Fred. Getting to the next one. So. All right, next we have the this one is our old, remember we had the circles in there, the developable, the steep slopes. So Fred took that out. Right now he has the steep slopes in red. We have the Connecticut wetland soils. And he is still going to add what layer, Fred?
The 100-year floodplain, 500-year floodplain, that I'm gonna take from FEMA.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
And that 500 years is actually 0.5% probability per year.
Yes, yes, I believe so. But I know I won't be here to see it. Hopefully you will.
Could be next week. Could be tomorrow.
All right.
I think the public, I think that's great that you're gonna add that. The public doesn't understand 100-year floods or 100-year floods.
And if you wish, I could certainly cut it down to the 100-year flood.
Okay. Let me just insert this. All right, Fred, let's see what else you have here. This one I'll bring up, but we're still working on, hold on, Fred. This one, the land use one, we're still working on this one, correct?
Yes, I know you wanted more specifics and kind of a clearer definition of what the legend is. I also discovered that some of the parcels we own from Lanxess have not been transferred in the assessor to it. So I will get that corrected. So I this is going to take a little more of a deep dive. But again, I want to get you the intent of what we're going to show, and it gives us some time to get it to everybody's satisfaction.
So basically, when Bob Pease met with Fred, way back, he had one map that he wanted to create, and this is one of the new maps, and this is called the borough-owned land. And it's gonna have the designated open space available for government use and available designated for private development, correct, Fred? Is that what this map is going to be, or it is?
Yes, and I would like to point out that if you look at the purple in the upper right-hand corner, a lot of that is little scraps of open space that was kind of created when they developed it. And it's really not open space. It's all stuff along the roads. So I will be adding the roads to this, so it'll make more sense. And I'm probably going to eliminate a lot of the little pieces that are just like stupid remnant pieces that shouldn't be open space to begin with. But, and I'll give you an example. And for example, Phoenix Avenue, they took a lot to extend the road to Johnson Street. Well, they built the road and there's two little slivers on both sides that nobody maintains. It's not open space. It was a developer's shortcut to get what they wanted.
So by time we have our final adoption and we do our public hearing, this map will be finished. But this was your number 3. All right,
Yes, I think you're right.
let's see. Hold on. We went over the parks. We went over the zoning, correct?
Yes.
We have, this one, let me do this like quick.
You have 2 checks down, I saw that I know.
I think they were older. I'll look again, but thank you. Land use changes, so Fred corrected this one. He had PDD 11 as 12 and 12 as 11. So this is land use changes that has happened since the last 2010 to whatever POCD. So we have the new PDD 12, which is the Jewish school with the mixed use. PDD 11 and the B2 in the front, so that says industrial condos. We have the new industrial park phase 3, that's down Elm Street. And then we have the SDD, Special Design District, right down here through this area, and we're looking to possibly extend it to the other side.
And Laura, you do have an updated map on this.
Okay. Thanks, Fred.
As you pointed out on Friday, I missed Nardelli's and.
Oh, okay, you looked at that.
Yes, so you have that. I took care of that over the weekend.
Okay. So this is another map that I believe Fred did over the weekend. This is our transportation network. I know he still needs to add the bus route, correct, Fred?
Yes. What this is, the state of Connecticut has a road classification system. And as you can see, there's local, which are the gray, major collectors, which would be Route 68, Route 63, and so forth. Freeway is clear, it's Route 8. And one of the things Wayne did while he was here, as part of the LOTSIP program to be able to get grants, he was able to reclassify Hillside Ave, the Yellow Brick Road, as a collector, which is in purple, which is very important because without it being a collector, we can't get grants. So It's very basic of what this is. And I just need to add bus routes.
What exactly is collector?
Pardon me?
What exactly is the? Just like that. I know what it is.
What does it mean? What's the definition of collector?
Traffic into
Um,
the,
I had a feeling you were gonna ask that question. I will get the definitions from DOT so everybody's clear.
Thank you.
Any questions on that one? Okay,
But I would say, collectors are basically get you to the next level of roads. So when it was like Field Street comes into Church Street or North Church Street. You've got roads that come into Route 68. So those would be collectors. Generally.
Major minor looks like it's the volume of neighborhoods and service.
Yeah, if you kind of look at the flow and so on and so forth, you being longtime Naugatuck residents, I think it makes sense.
okay. And we have this one right here, we went over before. This is our general government facility. So this is, we call it Bob's map, new map number 1. So this one has the education, the safety, emergency, all of that. So Fred, was this one done, or are we gonna do a little tweaking on the general administrations?
Oh, this needs a whole lot of work.
Okay,
Um,
but this is the gist of it. He put a legend up here with all the general administrations, the housing authorities, the different colors down on the bottom to figure out where they are. Is there-
in the previous maps, they had a separate map just for schools. And I think it just makes it easier for everybody to interpret. If you show schools, you show all the housing authority properties and so on and so forth on one map, because I think it just gives you a more complete picture on one map.
Right. Does that make sense? Have all our administration on one? Okay,
And feel free if you want to change something. I mean, we're kind of getting near the end. We've got limited time right now. My goal is really to get all these in a first iteration for you to be able to comment, and we'll make our final tweaks.
so what our goal is tonight is, after we read through here, after we talk to the Conservation Commission, is to refer this up to the Board of Mayor and Burgesses and to the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments. They need 65 days for their review. So that'll give us 65 days. Our public hearing will be December 11th. We'll have one meeting before on our regular scheduled date. Following week will be the public hearing. I need 35 days to notice it. So we're right on schedule right now with our timeframes per the state statute.
So
Okay.
my goal is to get you the bulk of it and get your confidence that I'll complete this to your satisfaction and to Mayor Burgess' satisfaction, as well as COG and the state.
Any other questions on maps for Fred?
thank you for your good work, Fred.
Yes, doing a yeoman's job.
They look
I'm
great.
gonna go change the Band-Aids on my fingers because my blisters are getting sore.
All right, let me just get these all put away. So next, I know I just gave you the document tonight. It was an update from our special meeting. But do we want to go through that? Do we want to talk to the
I think we should talk to conservation.
okay. Conservation Commission, how do we want to work that?
Well, we have, let me try and open, that we have, everyone's here has received and seen communications from Christine and Lance
And Melissa.
Yes, sorry.
And I guess we're going to open the floor to you both one at a time. To say what you wish.
Melissa, anybody, Len?
Sure, I can start. I guess I don't really have anything else to say other than what I've put in writing. Hopefully, Lori, I'm sorry if I didn't resend that with the red, changing the blue changes to red. I couldn't find that I had sent that, so I apologize. I thought I did.
I was able to take care of that. I did it on my end.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't really have any additional comments. Just didn't know if you had any questions. Yeah, I mean, that's it. I kind of went through the existing plan and then, amended basically what's in the existing plan, sort of updated it and amended it. And yeah, if you have any questions.
So what we did is we took your comments and the old, and we combined everything, and we took what we felt, we took everything into consideration and pulled out the parts that we liked and put it into the new one. So it's a rewritten section also.
Okay, great.
I didn't get them a copy. I mean, I've been working.
Yeah.
This came in right at the end of the day, so.
Yeah, it was last minute. Yeah, when did you say I mean, that'll be put out available to the public anyway, obviously before the public hearing on it, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. But
Correct.
yeah, if you have a chance to send it to us, that would be great.
Hey, Lori, if I may, I want to just call out Danielle for her excellent work on this. She's awesome as far as writing these things. And I think we'd be up a creek without her.
100%. She's a very good writer. She's our grant writer. She's a very hardworking individual who really got us to where we are, along with everybody's help, but she put it all together.
She is the ultimate bureaucrat breaker.
Any questions on that section? Are everybody reading? So Fred, in here, were we able to confirm, it says to date, the borough exceeds open space requirements with most recent estimates for open space totaling 16%?
We're gonna have to do those calculations. I know the previous COG POCD map that was the one they created for the previous POCD left off a boatload of open space properties.
Okay. Yeah, because I believe she got that number 16% from COG. So what we're gonna do is also verify all these numbers.
Yeah, the last map, I was just looking that up because I was like, where did I find that map? And it was dated 2017. So yeah, we've added, we might have even added Andrew Mountain since then. I can't remember where we got that, but we have added a bit. So it's not entirely accurate, I'm sure.
They missed Nichols Road. They missed some very big pieces that it was just wrong.
Yeah, I think they missed that big stretch along the bridle trail that the land trust has the easement on.
So
Yeah.
they didn't have the land trust in there, but also the Connecticut Water Company properties, correct, right off the bridle trail on both sides.
Yeah, yeah,
They missed all that.
Yep.
They did include Andrew Mountain, I believe.
Oh, okay, so we have had that a while.
I want to say it was probably I'll go look at I was looking at their online maps. So I will go back to the P O C D, and I think that you're probably correct. Andrew Mountain was not on there.
Actually, I just pulled it up and it is. So I guess we've had that. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
we
I
got
don't
it
think,
like around
I don't think
2000.
Guntown's on there. And we
No,
had
no, you're absolutely right. Guntown is not on there.
and we had that before Andrew Mountain. So yeah,
You
I
are
have to
absolutely correct. So what everybody's looking at was wrong to begin with.
yeah. I wonder how often, do you know how often they redo the maps?
They're always working on it.
Like a 10-year interval. Oh,
Their problem is they use interns. They don't have people in town that actually know
Yeah.
it. And to the best of their abilities, they do a good job. But we have these tweaks that you can look at and you can say, oh, it's missing this.
Yeah, yeah. 'Cause
So and
here, we know.
on the previous one, I was not involved in doing the maps. They took all my layers, they sent it to the consultant, and this is what we got. Just so you understand. So I think this is gonna be a much better POCD because we're doing it in-house. And we have people who understand, and we have people making comments who are not just making comments, but have good comments that pertain to this. Especially the open space.
Do we have any other comments?
Machine, I'm reading ignorance here. On the easements on either side of Larkin and Bridal Trail, are there any time boundaries on those easements for the current? Because in reading the comments from everybody, the permanency of open land is a great concern.
You talk about the easements, you said along the Bridle Trail over by Shattuck Road and Evelyn Drive and that area? I'm 99% sure it's the land trust has the easement, and I'm 99% sure it's in perpetuity because that was a condition of the water company giving the town that. That's my understanding since I got into the land trust. That that was a condition of the water company giving that property to the town.
Yes, and I didn't quite hear the whole question, but I think Melissa, you gave me enough info. So yes, there's a permanent conservation easement filed in the land records. And the water company has an easement over that property to get to their water tank that's there. And then it progresses into the Bridle Trail. I think that's what you were asking.
Yeah.
Oh, Len Yanelli's raising his hand.
Okay.
Thank you. Len Yanelli, Community Outreach Director of the Guntown Environmental Group. Needless to say, we're happy to hear about officially the acquisition of the 45 acres of the Wilmont property, and it's passive and it's going to be deed restricted. And it does abut the Guntown Passive Park and Nature Preserve. So the acreage is going up of passive open space, and that's a good thing. I just want to point out concerning COG, in state requirements in terms of open space, we got to be careful what's being counted. And the difference between passive and active open space is very important here. Passive is land with permeable surfaces. So you can't be counting ball fields with paved parking lots and the rest. It's pretty much common sense, but I just want to raise that. Secondly, it was also good to hear about the work being done to make downtown vibrant and more vibrant, and development happening down there. Because one of our concerns, the Solinardi property, 30 plus acres, has been mentioned. I know they there was a development plan that kind of loosely came before the Wetlands Commission for that area. And, that's not downtown. That's, gone out toward the rim of the town. And that area is important because, the biodiversity of the Guntown Passive Park and Nature Preserve and the new 45 acres being added, the passive open space, the biodiversity has to come from somewhere. It just doesn't pop up originally in the Passive Park and Nature Preserve. It's fed in from other areas, birds, mammals, and so forth. So that Solinardi property has to be closely looked at, but any development being proposed there is kind of ludicrous. There's a lot of wetlands up there, and that development should be directed downtown. There's plenty of brownfields that can be developed on. Lastly, concerning the plan of conservation and development, we've been mentioning this for a while, but that 330-300 rule would really be helpful if that's put out there into the plan. It can be decided how it's worded and everything. I get that would need discussion, but this idea of the three, meaning, you're looking out a window from an apartment complex now, everyone should have view of at least 3 trees or more, that there should be 30% shade when a person walks outside that development, and they should be within 300 meters, somewhat short of 1,000 feet of green open space. And that's such an important concept. We can discuss it in further meetings, but I think that would be a really helpful addition to the plan of conservation and development. I think, there's a realization that conservation belongs throughout the report. I mean, it's good that it's on pages 41 through 46, I believe it is currently. And that's important to maintain that, expand it. But it has to be throughout the report, because when you're talking about development, you cannot separate it from everything you've been talking about tonight, including the maps that Fred's been showing us, particularly the map on green open space. You just can't separate it. It has to be integrated throughout the report. And I'm hoping, we could help with that. We have on our Guntown board, we have 10 members. The 3 of us are biologists. And we're volunteers. So, be sure to call on us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Len. Anyone else have anything to say?
Nobody's raising their hand. Oh, I just have this on.
Hope you all at least got a chance. I know you haven't seen all of our minutes. Hope you got a chance tonight to see some of them that address your concern. Hear what's going on. I will say some of the things in your communication are certainly way beyond the purview and scope of this committee. We hear you, but not much you can do about a lot of, or some of it. Just keep that in mind. Don't think we're necessarily ignoring it, which is something you can't do. Okay, so there's no further comment on this section. Everybody has the current draft plan of conservation and development without maps will be added. We have no more yellow highlights in here. Got everything from Van and Nicole and yellow. I think we're ready to forward it to the Board of Mayor and Burgesses.
one question, do we want our maps inserted like the last time? Did you like that look, or do you want them at the end, all at the end, say, see appendix, whatever?
Page, oh, like, page 8?
So like our old POCD, let me just show you.
Have a transportation map in the transportation section you have.
I would just add that as far as when this is reproduced, when we make our copies, it is much easier to insert all these as a section versus inserted between pages. It's way more labor to do it versus having a section. But it's up to you, whatever you guys want. But speaking from printing and publishing, it's much easier.
So after each section, we could just see,
My 2 cents would be put in a map index page and then put all the maps at the back.
well, we do, so that's why it just says maps, because she was waiting to see where they're gonna be inserted.
The front,
So we could do the map index here and then insert them all in the back and,
and then with the all transparency.
oh, I talked to Fred about that. He, so with the Mylars, it's not clear, so he'd have to look into that, correct, Fred?
Just once. You know.
Hold on. Sorry, I muted myself. It's doable. We'd have to buy the material. And I don't know if I have the ability to print on it. I might be able to. I may need special ink for the plotter. But I understand what you're asking for. What we could, what I think we could do in the end is on the town GIS through the assessor where you go to New England Geo. We could provide all those layers that could be overlaid. What are your thoughts on that?
Like on our GIS now, I can turn on zoning and then I could turn on wetlands and you know what I mean? Just have it all overlaid if we do it there.
Exactly. And I appreciate what you're saying. I just, unfortunately, everything's digital now and people aren't going to come in to do overlays. Now, I'm with you guys. I still like the overlays from the old days, but I think in some ways it might be more useful to the general public to be able to turn layers off and on. And that's easy to work with New England Geo and have it online where anybody can look at this whenever they want.
For conservation group, what we're talking about is the ability, for example, to put wetlands and water courses and overlay them on any other map. Available property, developable property, reserved property. So from somebody coming into the borough to develop something, it's a convenience for them because they know immediately what issues they may or may not have to address. But for those up within the borough, it's a way of quickly identifying conflicts. I think that would be valuable to the Conservation Commission, to people interested in preserving open spaces. So I think being able to do it digitally, Fred, is probably good enough.
Is there a cost to that, Fred?
To add those layers to the website?
Yeah.
No, not really. And if there is, it's insignificant. The way they do it now, they've just got all sorts of layers from the state that don't pertain to anything we really want. But with respect to what you said about developers coming in, there's usually 3 avenues people come in. They either come in through land use and Lori, or they come in through NEDC and Ron, or they come into the mayor's office. And whenever these people come in, we have a meeting with them and we determine their needs and we try to find a suitable location for the size of parcel and something that would accommodate what they need.
Well, let's go the New England Geo route. And to continue the conversation, there's at least two of us here that would like to know what it would cost to have a set of the one set of the Mylars made.
Oh, well, I have Mylar that I can print on, so I could get a set of Mylars.
Transparent overlays, not the, not regular. Physical copy.
My suggestion would be, let's get the maps done.
Yep.
And then I will do whatever we need to do to get you what you're trying to accomplish.
Oh, one other thing, I would like to update like our pictures we have here and there, you know, housing, get new pictures. So, I mean, that could be inserted at the end
Yeah.
before our public hearing in December.
I would also add, we have drone capabilities now.
Oh, that's right, Fred. You can get us some real nice pictures.
So if there's something, you know, somebody wants to see like an aerial shot of, I work with the PD drone operator, and he's more than accommodating because it gives them flight time.
Maybe some of our parks and stuff too, or some of the open space, like where the dog park and the bees and the Guntown Passive Park from above. Those would be some nice pictures.
And I would prefer to do it somewhat later, once most of the leaves are off, because the leaves block what you can actually see. I was able to obtain some last year, end of October, of the Lanxess property, and the leaves were like 3/4 full color, half, some of them were down, and it was just spectacular.
Okay. Thank you, Fred.
So if you we'll work with you guys to get you what you need.
Thank you once again. There's no other comments. This, I will entertain a motion that the planning commission submit copies of proposed 2023 Naugatuck Plan of Conservation and Development, BOTD, to the Borough Board of Mayor and Burgesses and to the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments for their review and comments pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 8-23, preparation, amendment, or adoption of plan of conservation development. Yeah, put them together. So moved. Second. Any comments? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? And now, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Ray.
Ray.
Is it time to adjourn?
It is.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Who's the second?
Me.
Oh.
Why not? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all. We will see you next month.